Hey, 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 this is Jasmine Haley, host of the Beyond the Prophy podcast, and today's guest is Belangie Perez-Torres, who is the Director of Hygiene Strategy and Operations at Aspen Dental Management. Now, I wanted to bring her back on here because she was on our podcast in 2018, episode 32. So, for any of you that will love to hear the beginning parts of Belangie's career and what she was up to in 2018, take a look at episode 32. So, without further ado, welcome, welcome, welcome. I cannot wait for this conversation because when we talk about dental career motivation and inspiration, it is definitely the career that you've led. So, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Jasmine. I'm so excited to be back here and hear that "Hey, hey, hey" intro. I love it. It's iconic. It's stuck for so many years. I love it.
That's the first time I've heard that. That is actually super funny, but it is what I say every single time I start a podcast. Well, it's been incredible to kind of come back and check in on you. I've been gone for 5 years, and I when I came back and I was looking at some of the previous hosts, guests that we've had for the show, I said, "What?" So, let me just let everybody know this. And I haven't made it public just yet, but I am actually going to be taking on a part-time role working with Aspen. So I was going through the onboarding process, and guess whose beautiful face did I see? Bella. And I said, "My gosh, this is incredible. Here I'm on my journey, tapping back into the clinical world, and my leader that's here at the place that I'm going to be employed is Bella." So we want to tap into your journey and what got you here. And I would love to know, what you've been up to for the last couple of years since we've met you in 2018. Let us know what has been a part of your own journey, your leadership journey.
Oh, wow. Yes, absolutely. And I can't believe how much we've grown, as an individual in our own profession within since 2018. So I'm going to take a little step back here. I actually started my dental career back when I was an orthodontic dental assistant, and being with
Mm.
adolescents with horrendous hygiene is what piqued my interest to go to hygiene school. So I was fortunate enough to have one open up in my hometown, and it was convenient at that time. From also personally, I was a single mom and I was going through some major changes in my life and providing a better quality of life for my son. So it just sounded like the natural career progression from orthodontic dental assistant. Already doing a lot of oral health education after school rush hour, to go to dental hygiene school. And so my first career as a dental hygienist was at Aspen Dental in Rome, New York, which is a a small kind of city in the middle of New York State. So I'm very far away from New York City. I'm probably closer to Canada than I am to New York City. So it's a very different demographic, and even just like the local culture compared to everyone affiliates with New York City. Um, so being working at Aspen Dental at that time was in 2011. I believe we had less than 400 dental practices, and our headquarters was um, stationed in Syracuse, New York, which is about 45 minutes from my office. One of the things that I really loved about Aspen Dental when I first joined is one, it had a lot of like the modern technology. Now, working with orthodontists, they have a little bit bigger budget and they always had the latest technology. So that was important for me, especially when I shadowed some local offices and still saw that they had conventional x-rays. That was like a deal breaker. So it's like, you don't have digital x-rays, I'm not working there. Plus the personal package and benefit package, which is important for single parents to
Mhm.
also have. But it also was in the forefront of a lot of different technologies. It's constantly evolving and looking to see what's next. And that forward thinking mindset of the organization what has also drawn me to be part of it, part of the vision, and also the types of patients that they've really catered to. They really were specific with identifying who their core patient. is, and really designed a lot of their strategy and initiatives to really serve those patients and the providers, because essentially the brand has two clients. If you think about it, they have the providers, right? You got to keep them
Mhm.
satisfied and happy so they can have meaningful, rewarding careers and grow within the organization, but also the patients to make sure we're making it convenient, accessible to them, and still providing that quality of care. So I loved their framework and the mindset. And as the organization grew, there was a leader, dental hygiene leader at the time. They only had really one hygiene manager who eventually got promoted to hygiene director, and she started to have hygiene coaches, and then that evolved into the hygiene support team at Aspen Dental. And so now our hygiene support team has grown to 45 team members with hygiene
Wow.
managers. Yeah, hygiene managers that provide more of that chair side, office level clinical support. And then above them we have 9 hygiene directors that
Mm.
serves support through about 3 to 5 hygiene managers and work a lot with the practice owners on some of their strategies, kind of like a little bit longer term goals as well, so they can continue to grow their practice, their hygiene practice. And then above them, we have a vice president of hygiene operations, which is Cameron Jones. So it was phenomenal to see how the organization has really evolved in the industry, but
Mhm.
also how they value the talent and the skills of the dental hygienist and the value that they bring to the practice. And
Mhm.
so that seemed like a fit for me, and from think of it from a career progression. And I have a unique role with the organization. I don't provide so much field level support, meaning I'm in traveling in the offices, talking with the owners. I actually am more involved in more enterprise level initiatives, like looking at what are the things that are coming. Because again, that forward thinking mindset is what attracted me. It's like, what's out there? What are we doing today? What can we make it? How can we make it better for the patient and
Mhm.
provider experience? So that's kind of like what my journey, which has been really rewarding, and being able to utilize my skill set in a bit of an entrepreneurial way, more like entrepreneurial, if you think about it. And I know
Yes.
our last podcast, episode 32, I had an entrepreneurial mindset, launching a
Mhm.
hot cocoa beverage on Amazon, and you were an entrepreneur, so I would gravitate to you. And I
Mhm.
love that about how much we've grown. And although I did not have much success on the entrepreneurial side, I still leverage that talent and that skill set in the entrepreneurial side. So, which had
Yes,
a
yes.
bigger budget than I do. So
You know what? I appreciate you for sharing that. And I really think that one gem that you just shared was the fact that we can leverage skills in clinical practice and the skills that we may have gained in entrepreneurship. It's a win win, regardless of, if you decide to pivot and move from that particular business model. And for those who are listening have never heard the term entrepreneur, what it essentially means is that you're a full-time employee that is utilizing the entrepreneurial skills to be able to grow an organization. So the same skills that you would use to grow a business is being leveraged by companies like Aspen. So I would love to know for you specifically, what were some of the shifts you needed to make in order to prepare for the role that you have? Because I feel like there's still some myths that need to be busted when it comes to DSOs. We're not going to get into that today because it is about your story, but I would love for others who may be listening who have like some inkling that they want to do more, but they're not quite sure what the personal development side is needed for them to even aspire to have a position like this one day.
yeah, absolutely. One of the things, because our office was strategically located 45 minutes from our headquarters, I was a really big hand raiser for testing new initiatives, right? Being a champion of change, right? For me, I get kind of bored doing the same thing in that methodical approach, which is so part of our dental hygiene, um, daily practice is, continue, going through all these checklists. Did you complete it? I always liked was attracted more to the new and exciting things. And anytime there was something that needed to be tested and get user feedback, I was like, I'm involved. Tell me. I'll figure it out. We'll make it work, and I'll give you feedback, and so we can make it better before it gets rolled out. Now, anytime you're testing or even implementing something new in your practice, it's there's going to be some frustrations. First of all, we know we don't really have a lot of time in our schedule to kind of learn, and being prioritizing the time that's going to take to learn and apply some of these new things uh, can create some bottleneck in the schedule, and which nobody likes. Nobody likes to be behind schedule. But because I was intentional with my time and also really quick with my feedback and giving them some ideas to make it better, it created some exposure. And I think that's something that we don't do really well. Like we know what we're doing well, but are we exposing it to the right people who
Mm.
are like the decision makers, right? Who are involved. Because the more you expose your talent, which is, I know that for some people it might seem like it's a little bit of bragging or anything, but it's not that. It's really about marketing yourself, your expertise, you're becoming a subject matter expert and showcasing your talent professional in a way that when the decision makers or people who are creating job roles in the future growth of the organization, they will have you as probably the preferred candidate in mind when these career opportunities occurred. So, a, a couple of the roles that I've had didn't exist at all. I was the first person hired for it. It was created, and I was the strongest candidate for it. And so, why? Because I really exposed myself out there. I wasn't gaining at first from like the user experience. There wasn't a reward, financial reward incentive to it, but that exposure and the opportunity for me to understand what non-clinical business people are thinking has been a bit of a lesson for me that you can't get from sometimes in, MBA programs. So, just really understanding that networking, that exposure, and being really the h- hand raisers for implementing change to help with the support of the organizations just gives anyone a competitive advantage in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. So, would you say you said network briefly, but how have relationships been able to help you along your journey?
Oh yeah, first starting with the practice owners, right? They're very influential. The regional managers and directors, and also telling them what was interested at too, right? When sometimes we don't have to wait for an opportunity to hand or raise. Maybe we can offer suggestions and ideas and say, hey, I'm looking for these types of opportunities, or I want to develop my skills and talent. Can we, if something comes down the pipeline, can I be the one of the first people considered for it? Just taking that initiative, but also maintaining a healthy, friendly relationship too, getting to know our team members at our personal human level, right? Not just what their jobs are, but what are their hobbies? What are their likes? What motivates them, more importantly, right? Because everyone has different motivations. And if you know what motivates them or what engages them, you can kind of shift your personality type to really connect with them much easier, and then you become more likable, right? And likable and more respected
Mhm.
as a person. And they feel they can talk to you about certain things that's top of mind because we've got to know them at a human level. So it's important to also foster those relationships. And it doesn't have to always occur in the practice, just taking some time out of the office to get to know your team members will significantly help improve the workplace culture.
Mhm. Exactly. Does this work for introverts?
Ooh, you know what? I think it works for introverts, maybe not like the social settings, but maybe that one-on-one connection, right? Maybe not that
Yeah.
group settings. But introverts probably can connect with somebody more at that one-on-one level, just talking
Yeah.
to them versus, so I think that might work for them. Just avoid the group event, but if you could say, "Hey, I'd like to take you out for a cup of coffee or just lunch, just you and I, so we could talk things about certain ideas." That I think introvert or more is more likely to kind of um, be open to and receptive to because there's more focus, and then plus it removes some of the distractions out of it. When you have that
Yeah.
a little bit more intimacy, people are tend to be more open.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you shared and kind of just like what has worked along for you. What really came up to for me is that you provided value first. I think, a lot of
Mhm.
times when people have those little inklings and they're like, "Oh, I'm really excited to do something. I'm just not quite sure. Can I pick your brain? Can I pick your brain? Can I pick your brain? Can I pick your brain?" Like I've heard that so many times. And this is not to say for any of you to ever feel, for any of the listeners to feel like, well, man, no one wants to help me and no, I can't reach out. That's not what's being said. But if you notice just from Belangie's experience, Bella's experience, and many others who have been here, they've added value first. And so she was raising her hand to get involved and to share her feedback and input. And then that led the way for more conversation and relationship building. So I think there's a bit of patience that's needed, and also knowing that we want to humanize the experience of connection and know that when we're doing that, the natural flow, of course, right, of us being able to excel in our career will happen.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for everyone to look at, as hygienists, we're trained to assess problems, right? Dental problems.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we
yeah.
can use that skill set to assess business problems, practice problems. And
Mm.
so when you think about how, marketing yourself and um, providing solutions, let's start with what problem are we trying to solve? And then come with be prepared with a solution. I think, you don't wanna just talk about problems because that's not that's not attractive either. Like, people wanna know, "Tell me what you, want solved, and then what you need for me to solve it." So if you can assess any type of problem, and I don't think even it could be something small, and then just continue to layer that skill. But when we're trained with that framework, and we can leverage that. Okay, you diagnose the business problem. What's the solutions? Are there alternate solutions? What's the risk of not doing anything? Where's the gain?
Mhm.
And what's the outcomes of it? It's interesting that clinical mindset, we have it. Now we just have to change how we apply it when it comes to practice management or even personal business ventures.
I love that. For you, as you are climbing the ladder in leadership, I would love to know specifically what kind of brand shifts that you need to make, because I think sometimes as clinicians, we often feel like, well, I'm not a brand. And no, but you are. You are brands. You do represent something, and people do look at that when they're thinking about whether or not to consider you for a promotion. So I would love to know what kind of shifts you needed to make for your own personal brand.
Oh, yeah. So, especially in the era of digital social media,
Mhm,
there's people watching, whether it's on LinkedIn, depending on that professional audience, or
mhm,
even, Instagram, Facebook. And now there's a lot of big consumer audience in TikTok as well. People are looking for that quick advice.
mhm,
So, when I transitioned from hygienist to our hygiene manager, that was a full-time non-clinical role. And so from that aspect, I went changed and had a professional headshot. I wanted to make sure I had my accolades out there, but also be able to kind of track my value again, track my what I've contributed, whether it's in the organization or for non for profit too, because I'm also active with a professional association, and with results, my results there, which is a little different because we're so used to patient outcomes with our perio charting. Look at the numbers, look at the health. Business wants numbers results too. So you want to be able to track the impact that it's had. And so when I was in my hygiene management role for a few years, it's been a lot of organizations organizational changes in my leadership. And so that created a little bit of a panic for me because it's like, okay, my leader's retiring.
Mm.
I've seen what happens with departments when, one of the OG leaders retire and they bring in someone external. There's a lot of organizational changes. That's happens. It's normal part of business. And, business as they grow, they do start to look for outside talent who's been able to manage global companies. So I was a bit of a career crisis for a period, for lack of better terms. And I said, okay, let me go back. I need to, again, market my value. So whoever this new leader comes knows the contributions I've had, because I have a unique role, so it's not in the field, but also be a partner, a strategic partner for this new leader, so we can continue with the visions and their vision too for the team. So again, I went for a headshot, but this headshot is different. When I went to meet with a photographer, I told him, listen, I want to be perceived as an executive leader. I want to be invited into the decision making rooms to share, plans and results, but I need to capture that in a headshot. And I'm a big active on LinkedIn too. So I was getting a good following in LinkedIn. So I was like, okay, I need to kind of shift from the image of being a manager to like this executive leader, a healthcare leader, and I want to come off as I'm inspiring. Because one of the feedbacks I've gotten a lot from just people in general, I asked them if there's one word you can choose to describe me, what would that word be? And many of them said you're inspirational. I'm like, okay, I never thought it was inspirational because maybe that's my normal personality. But what's normal to me, it's pretty like unique and talented for others. So I'm like, okay, so I
Yeah.
want to be an inspirational healthcare leader, capture that in a headshot. So we did a bunch of headshots. And one of the things he said, he was like, how important is it for you to smile on your photo? I was like, I'm in the teeth industry. I'm in the smile industry. I have to smile. Like I'm like, gotta show the pearly white teeth. He's like,
Mhm.
well, if you want to be perceived as an by executive leaders, they tend to have a little bit more serious demeanor in their photos. And I'm like, you could smile, but do a little smirk, not the big, big, crest white smile teeth. I'm like, okay, I will do that. And then we went through some poses and, power poses. Some of them looks like I was going to be an attorney joining a law firm, but eventually narrowed down to my top 5 photos, and I shared them with some executive leaders that I have really personal connections with, and just to say, "Okay, out of the 5, just tell me what your top 2 is." And there was one photo that all 5 of them consistently ranked number 1, not knowing each other, and I was like, "Okay, this is the one." And it was a photo that I wouldn't have picked for myself, but clearly they understood my objectives because I made it clear what I wanted, and sometimes, I conflicted with my own thoughts. So it was good to have consistent answers across people that I really trusted for it. And so I rebranded my photo. I rebranded my LinkedIn completely. So if you look at my LinkedIn today and what it was when I was a hygiene manager, it's different. One of the things I did, which is different, is I dropped some of my credentials, right? I dropped saying that I'm an RDH or dental hygienist, at least at the top header part of LinkedIn. Why did I do that? Because I didn't want to attract dental hygiene careers. If I knew I want to be more a leader and a business partner in the dental hygiene profession, why would I continue to promote my dental hygiene credentials on the top and attract those job opportunities? And I think people may not know this, but LinkedIn and a lot of the you leverage search engine optimizations, right? Which means
Yes.
keywords. And which is why when you Google, like, just want, you didn't even finish what you were Googling, and Google knows what you want because of
Yes.
the search engine optimization. LinkedIn's the same thing. So what you tag on the top, those keywords are going to start funneling some opportunities.
Yep.
for you. So,
Yep.
so I don't think people know that, and it's important to really be thoughtful what keywords you put in your LinkedIn header description, in your official name and title, because that's how it's going to promote you and expose you to a lot of opportunities.
Yes. Yes. Listen, I hope y'all rewind that, listening back to back to it a couple of times, okay? Because that is some serious gems. And if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I'm going to highly recommend that you get one. Make sure you connect with Bella, make sure you connect with me and Beyond the Prophy, because your network is your net worth when you are
Hmm.
really trying to uplevel your career, whether clinical or not, you know? And there was something that you had said earlier, which I think is important for folks to know, is that people, everybody's watching.
Hmm.
Everybody's watching. They may not comment on everything, like everything, but they are observing you. And I've had people who I've partnered with, corporations that I've partnered with as a KOL. One of the first things they said, "Oh, I've been listening to your podcast for some time. I've been watching you for some time." And I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I say? Hopefully I wasn't too crazy. But they do, and I think that is so important for everyone to keep that in mind as they're growing in their career. So we're heading towards the end of our conversation, and I want to be respectful of your time. I would love for you to share with the audience, if we were to go back to Bella in 2018, or even before that, like, what is one word of advice you would give yourself now as you sit in this position and what you've experienced the last couple of years since we've last talked?
One word of advice? Uh, can we merge power networking? So, um, only because when we going back what we said about networking, and one of the things I did for my personal growth and development is network outside of my industry. I wanted to learn what leaders are doing outside of dental, because I think dental is like its own little world and it can be a little bit limiting. And so I've attended conferences that had nothing to do with dental, but it captured leaders of women leaders, because that's what I like to often attend to, or minority leadership events all over. And I've connected with people from Microsoft, Google, like these major global companies. It's like, what are you guys doing to stay ahead of the competition in the industry? Following my medical professionals, right? We know medical professionals tend to adopt modern practices and technology much faster than the dental. So I say power network, you know, try to be open to really understand other people's perspectives and their opinion, and ask them, what's one thing that helped them be successful. And you can learn so much from power networking and meeting people that you probably wouldn't have normally connected to. So there's always going to be lessons. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but everyone has a story. Everyone has lessons that they've learned in the good and bad. And then that can help shape your character, your personality, for the next phase of your life. So I like to call myself, I'm a 4.0 era. I'm Belangie 4.0, which is um, which is like, what software does. They tend to have versions. So I'm in my 4.0 version, and
Oh,
I'm
I love that.
hoping, yeah. So I'm hoping that as you look at your last decades, your milestone decades, what did you gain? What did you learn? What's your strengths and weaknesses, and who do you need to go to or network to evolve for the next better version of yourself?
That was so good. Okay, I got one more question. I thought I got one. No, 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 I got one more. Um, I would love to know. I have a client and friend who has this beautiful podcast. Shout out to her. It's called Elevating La Cultura, and she talks about elevating the culture for people who have Latin heritage. And
Mm.
I would love to know for you, um, elements of your culture and other things that have helped you be able to get to where you're at as a Latin woman? Because I think that is also super inspirational, because you don't often see leaders that look like you, who have full vibrant names like you. So I would just love just a quick overview of like what that has meant for others, and how that has like led you to where you're at.
Oh, I think we may need a whole nother podcast dedicated to that, because let me tell you, where I'm at today is not where I was 20 years ago. And
Mm,
I live in central New York. So mm, I'm very underrepresented. And I came here because the military, and when the military left, I have part of the, Puerto Rican culture. My parents were really, especially my mom, very proud. People are very proud with their culture. And my
mhm.
mom was also very religious. So for the longest time, probably the first 20 years of my life, I never felt like I belonged here. I was kind of almost, I was struggling with my own identity. Like I never fit with the social norms of the local. And I thought I was just odd, right? Like I was struggled with my own self-esteem and personality. And it wasn't till I was older and mature and started to see my personal success that I realized that what I thought was weird of me or odd is actually so unique and is my strength. And so I had to really appreciate my passionate personality, which might be too much for someone who might be too much for some. Um,
We love it.
that I came to love it. I
Yeah.
was trying to fit in a box, and I realized the society wasn't prepared for people like me. It took me a while to realize I wasn't the problem. Society was the problem because they weren't prepared to deal with people who are very cultured, or have, I actually went from Puerto Rico to Germany to here. So that's a lot of different cultural exposures I had that a lot of people didn't have experience. But it's been my strength. And I will credit to my mom, who's been my personal leader. She's been able to be that feisty advocate for our local Hispanic community, to really bring change and change the narrative of the Hispanic culture. And seeing that, and seeing she's been, sadly discriminated, but she didn't be defeated by it, right? So she just kept going and going, and it took decades for her to finally see the fruits of her labor, to the point that now the local politicians are inviting her to be
Mhm.
part of boards or certain meetings, even with her heavy accent. So seeing that she finally got the respect and credit that she deserved without formal education, with a heavy accent, and always stayed true to her identity. Like she never changed who she was culturally and religiously. She's always stayed consistent, despite all the adversity she's faced. And that's been my biggest role model and example. And say, you know what? I have more resources, I have more education. If she could do it, why can't I?
Shout out to your mom.
Shout out to Latina moms out there.
Yeah, let's
they're,
let's go.
they're trailblazers, the trailblazers out there.
That's incredible. It's incredible, because what people don't often think about is the measure of courage and boldness needed to go after your goals when it hasn't really been paved for
Mhm.
you. You don't really see examples of it. You don't know who to go to, who to speak to. And you could feel very much so out of place. But I love the fact that you reference your mom, who throughout all of the bumps and challenges and discrimination, if that showed up in any shape or form, she stayed true to herself. And that is a beautiful lesson for each of us as we are more, propelling ourselves through our own career. So I just want to thank you so much, Bella. Like, you are such an incredible person, leader, and it's been so awesome diving into where you're at now and taking some valuable lessons. I know that this is definitely going to be a source of continuous inspiration for our listeners for years to come. Please let the listeners know where they can find you. where can they find you so they can
Oh,
follow you?
yes. So you can, like I said, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I've had people reach out to me there with specific needs. Definitely tried to connect through there. That would be my first choice. But if you just want to follow me where what I'm doing, more from like a social media standpoint, I do have a handle. It's dental_hygiene. So, so I'm always posting photos there, food, family, and just the culture too. So, like of my work, what I'm doing at Aspen Dental with the team bonding and relationships. So it's cool to see that aspect too. But stay in touch, follow me either there, and of course, if you're interested in careers at Aspen Dental, you can apply at the website too.
Well, awesome. I am so appreciative for you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having